Officer Jeanette Latino. Sergeant Terry Toes here. He's, we had any language barriers for Chinatown, Chinese speakers. He's our go-to guy. But yes, we're in charge of public safety. So we're gonna talk about any concerns you may have. We'll give you a rundown of stats that we are currently having, in our district, the 9th district. And it's indicative of citywide numbers, these numbers. So year-to-date homicides are down 62%. Shootings year-to-date, and this is within the entire district,
Not just in the 11th ward.
But it carries over pretty much.
Can you just familiarize everybody with, well, what the boundaries of the 9th district are? Almost all of 11 is within the 9th district, by the way, so.
Yes,
yeah.
almost all of 11, Chinatown, Bridgeport, Park, Canaryville, moving west towards Halsted and probably McGuane Park homes here, they're all 11th ward, probably to Ashland. But the district boundaries of the 9th district goes from Cermak, pretty much Cermak, south to 55th Street, the Dan Ryan Expressway, all the way to Kedston. So it encompasses a pretty large area. We work with 9 different wards, augmented wards within the city. So 11th ward is one of our bigger wards. So we do deal with the 11th ward quite closely. Sharon has my number, Zoe has my number, so we're in constant contact with all types of issues, crime issues, traffic issues, whatever may be within the ward. Going back to shootings are 39% down, year-to-date robberies, 38% down, burglaries, 15% down, and motor vehicle thefts, 17% down year-to-date. So, everything's trending in the right direction. We're going down. And again, it's indicative of citywide numbers. So we're doing fairly well with everything that's going on. Keep in mind, it is the beginning of summer in Todd out. Expect to be a little bit busier, but we're looking pretty good for the year, year to date. As far as public safety concerns, like I said, we work really closely with all the women in these office with anything that may come up. I think recently we just really had a lot of thefts from motor vehicles. That's one of the main concerns throughout the overnight hours. There's a couple individuals going through the neighborhoods, checking car doors, getting in the cars, rummaging through them. Nothing, I don't want to say major, but they go through. They're going through the cars, especially in Bridgeport, a couple in Chinatown. So again, if you see something, call us. Never engage. Don't approach these individuals. We just don't know how dangerous or crazy they may be. But you can call 911, get a description of the subject or any vehicles or a bike that he may be on. That'll help us a lot. We can track them. We have a great network of cameras, especially in Chinatown area. The Crime Watch group in Chinatown has a really good phone tree that when anything happens, they're on it right away, checking cameras, the network of cameras they have. Also, I'm aware Bridgeport also has a Crime Watch group that social media. So when something happens in Bridgeport as well, and Canaryville, they're on it right away. So get the information out as quickly as possible to your neighbors, to us. Again, descriptions, any clothing descriptions, direction of flight, vehicle descriptions, and if you're lucky enough to get a license plate, that is crucial. Having a license plate for us, we can track these vehicles across the entire city. The city has a network of license plate readers, LPRs, that we utilize daily. I mean, it is amazing what that technology is helping us do. We can actually get the helicopter up and we can actually track vehicles from robberies throughout the city and actually has a lot of success catching some of these offenders when they stop their car either on the south or west side. So, but other than that, welcome any questions later on. Any concerns?
So I'll just raise a couple of things. So we do have signs over here for your windows. They say we call police if you want to put something in your window. On the backs of those, there's some helpful tips in English and Chinese about just how to get a good description. Some of the things that Commander Mark was just talking about. Whether that's what someone's wearing, the type of vehicle, that kind of information, just if you can review some of that stuff. And if you do happen to see something, it just allows you to provide a better description. There's also some other information in Chinese there and some personal alarms. As Commander Mark said, we're getting into the summer. I think that, everybody is just, I think everybody's concerned. It's great that the stats are down overall. I don't think that's to be disputed. I think generally speaking, I still get the sense as we talk to constituents that people don't feel necessarily safe, especially going out, walking around at night.
Yep.
Uh,
And again, that's a very valid point, that's a great point, I mean, the numbers these are compiled numbers, and the numbers have been going down, but obviously, the question is, do you feel safe? And a lot of people don't, it's unfortunate, but we have been, increasing patrol, you'll see we just implemented our bike team. I hope you guys have been seeing them out there across the parks, across, you're doing CTA checks, park checks, so our bike team is out there, daily. So we've increased, patrol in certain areas where we have seen a spike in crime, whereas like the overnight, theft from motor vehicles. I've had my tag teams out there, cruising around neighborhoods, specific, streets that have been targeted by these individuals. So we've made some stops. Unfortunately, these types of crimes, it's hard to solve them, because there's no witnesses or evidence. We can catch the guy for that car, but to tie it in for all the cars, all the thefts and closed cases, it's a tough thing for our detectives division to do. But getting that one guy off the street probably, stop a lot of incidents. So we're out there trying, doing the best we can, and continue to do so throughout summer.
Yeah.
Hopefully keep the numbers down.
And we appreciate all that the ninth district's doing. I know, there was a very visible car accident that happened today, but today's only Monday. The weeks run all together for me. It was last week on 31st and Low. And it was, in the morning, and it was not even a stolen vehicle. But there was a car driving at very high speeds that ran into another vehicle in the intersection. And the driver ran off. We'll get right to you, Anna, okay? There was a person that ran from the vehicle, and we happened to have one of our police lieutenants in the area who apprehended the person, and they recovered 2 guns, actually. The guy who fled had a weapon on him, and so did the passenger. So, appreciate the work that's going on. And look, there's a whole lot out there that we can't control. I think that, the police were called very quickly, and emergency services were called very quickly, many of the many nice things about our neighborhood, concerned neighbors is something that I think is a really good thing here, where, people ran to help, make sure people were okay, in that instance. And just to say too, when we meet with Commander Mark every couple of weeks to go over any of the stuff that we are getting in the ward office in terms of concerns that people have, whether that is suspected drug dealing that's happening, illegal, car rings on the street, gang activity. We had somebody that was killed, and it was like a targeted hit. It was pretty apparent. That was back on was that Hillock? Yeah, 25th and Hillock. And there, we worked closely with the residents there. It was a very scary time. Bullets went into people's homes. And we're working closely with the police and others, and the landlord even to get updates on what's happening over there. But lots of special attention over there. I think that the police on the bicycles, were very visible, and I think very much appreciated the feedback that we got, from folks in the ward. Look, we know that public safety is not just about policing too. I just want to be clear about that. They play an important role, but every single person that lives in the workplace plays an important role in public safety as well. And just helping to be watchful neighbors and helping each other. And from an infrastructure perspective, things like lights are really important. We don't want dark corners when people are walking home. Those are all things that we take very seriously. Aaron, I don't want to put you on the spot at all, but as our representative, is there anything that you want to share from the district council's perspective? We'd also encourage everybody to attend CAPS meetings.
Yes.
Yes, then you can see Officer Patino and Sergeant Bautista more often. Thank you. Okay, thank you, guys. But going to the beat meetings is also, I think, for those of you that attend those regularly, thank you. If there's specific issues in and around your area that you want to hear more about or discuss with your neighbors and, strategize with the police about, please attend those CAPS meetings. We do advertise that in the newsletter, and then also with our district counselors. They have monthly meetings as well. Aaron, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah,
Can you come up here and speak into we got a little microphone over here. That way that anybody that's online can do that.
That's great.
Yeah, there's a microphone, like the little mic there, you can sit right here and
Okay. Thank you.
talk into the owl.
Hi,
It's watching
everybody.
everybody.
I know, I actually watched this online. For those of you who don't know, district council is a new position. So 2 years ago, when Alderley was elected, this is the first time that all of us were elected. We were here to promote public safety and to be a bridge between police and community. So there's 66 of us across the city of Chicago. I'm one of 3 from the 9th district. So I live down the street in Bridgeport. My colleague lives in Canaryville, another in McGuane Park. And we hold monthly meetings, and I'll just plug that. On Wednesday, our next monthly meeting is at McGuane Park's field house, and we'll be discussing CPD's workforce allocation study.
That'll be good.
It's at 6:30. But I think just the last part, it's like what Nicole said, public safety is more than just the police. So like hearing about Bridgeport's phone trees, Chinatown's phone trees, knowing your neighbors also make us safer. And just for like those stats, if we don't know about it, we don't know something's happening, then also I think the lights are off on 31st between Racine and Morgan. Drove by last night. But no, knowing your neighbor makes us safer. So if you guys have questions about what district counselors are and what our work is, please reach out to me. But that's all I've got.
Well, thank you. Appreciate all the work that you do.
This is really.
Yeah, so graffiti and street signs, that's the other thing I'll mention from a public safety perspective. The graffiti tagging, as soon as it started to get just a little warm, we saw a big uptick in graffiti going up. The city's streets and sands teams are really great. Once we report them, they get on top of those pretty quickly. The challenging thing is when we get tagged on like a Thursday or Friday night, and we only have so many crews working through the end of the day on Friday. So sometimes, the graffiti taggers get smart about it. They know that the most opportune time to do it is, into a Friday, into a weekend, and then they stay up for the longest. If you own a property that has been tagged, you can call 311 or call our office. The city will cover that up. If they can't sandblast it off, your options are white paint, gray paint, or brown paint. But those are the only options. So I just want to be clear about that. But we do try to get the graffiti down as quickly as possible. We don't want anybody to think that they can claim the streets that we have here. And the same with bent street signs. If you see a street sign that looks like it's been pulled down, it's a very common way that gangs try to mark their territory. We spend a lot of money on signs. I don't have the stats for you, but I know in talking to the sign division, they're constantly replacing signs, but it's really important for us to try to get those replaced as quickly as possible. So if you see something like that, please help us out, call it in. Do it on 311 if you want to, but also like let us know so that we can chase that stuff down from the city side. Anna, did you have a quick question?
Yeah, I'd like to partner about whether CPD is working with ICE, because we have heard the CPD is not allowed to work with ICE in order to make immigrants more comfortable calling the police and any police. But then there's video coming out of the South Loop of this sort of mass abduction by ICE and seems to show CPD, and I think that's District 1 up there. It seems like CPD was coordinating with and possibly assisting ICE, so can we get some clarity around that?
Yeah, of course. Official policy of the Chicago Police Department is for us as officers, not to engage, not to assist ICE and nor to deter them. So we're officially just spectators. If they're conducting their operations, we are just we don't do anything actually. If we're there, we're just for public safety. We don't involve ourselves with immigration enforcement at all. That being said, if there's some violence going on, just like any other law enforcement agency, if people our officers or ICE agents are being harmed, just like any other citizen, we would have to, for public safety interests, step in to try to help preserve anybody from getting hurt. So that being said, we really don't have any interaction with ICE, other than there are times that the ICE Homeland Security does call my office and let us know they're working in a specific area. But that again is not required by them. They did give us courtesy at certain times, but then I've heard other times that they work in a certain area and they didn't notify us. So they do their own thing. Obviously, it's the federal government and we can't interdict and we are not allowed to actually for our department policy. So I know there's a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors, there's a lot of videos, there's one in Chinatown not too long ago, and actually we fielded a lot of calls regarding that one. I don't know, I cannot confirm 100% if it was immigration related. But I highly doubt that was. I know, other federal agencies are conducting a lot of different investigations, where there's human trafficking, narcotics related, that type of stuff, money laundering, that type of stuff within our area. So there's a lot of investigation going on. So as far as immigration enforcement, we have official police department, we have nothing to do with it. So we're not involved at all. So,
And just to add on to that, if someone's caught up in like a criminal investigation for any of those things, trafficking, drugs or whatever, and there is some sort of like outstanding immigration issue with it, it seems to me that ICE is enforcing that, and using that as also like grounds for
so
deportation.
that's if they.
That's if they have,
conduct that
if
stop.
they conduct the stop, not the police.
If we conduct a stop and we make an arrest and we know the person is here illegally, let's say, we are not, we cannot call ICE to have them come. We have no interaction with ICE regarding that, and that's our official policy. So we are not to do that at all. So if you hear anything, obviously it's a concern, but overall, everybody knows in our department not to engage in that type of activity, something like that. I know there's a lot of rumors out there, a lot of speculations, a lot of concerns, and rightfully so. I mean, it's definitely part of what's going on with society right now. So, but yeah, just try to put everybody's mind at ease. The official department policy, Chicago Police Department, we have nothing to do with those. We do not assist nor deter.
Can you go over on that?
Of course.
Because I'm wondering if they might call you because they think that the person that they're going to stop is a criminal. But they don't have the name, do they tell you, we do have a name and we need you to be there?
No, they do not contact us
Okay,
at all.
I just want to make sure.
Official policy, they do not contact us at all.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. Commander Mark, the topic that you were talking about, how we fight crime locally within the Bridgeport, Maryville area. We hear all that from a micro standpoint is commendable, but fact of the matter is most of those crimes that you mentioned that we've discussed so far are happening in the dark of night. If someone does see this, then by the time they call the police, by the time someone shows up, they're long gone. So essentially, it's like chasing the ghost. So what can we do locally to cut this off the source in the state? I know all of Bridgeport, all of Maryville, McGuane Park, et cetera, is very different, block by block or square blocks by square blocks. What I see in my local community is a lot of houses that have been once foreclosed or empty are now being renovated and then rented by the room. Statistically speaking, an individual who's gonna rent by the room is less committed to the neighborhood, to the community, more transient in nature, and likely to have some sort of a inclination towards crime. So, let me finish.
Okay,
So then we have to envision this.
Anna,
One person.
yeah,
Moving
please.
into the neighborhood. That is an impact where, without the building, the Department of Buildings determining and checking if things are being rented and zoned correctly, we have a higher density issue, which is a separate problem. But also a propensity for individuals who may be likely to commit crimes. How are we attacking that? How are we making sure that's not happening, reducing levels already?
So,
Including poverty and crime.
okay, can I answer his question just real quick, Anna? So I don't think that there's a way for us to head off all of this, right? So when our office is made aware of a building that may be suspected of like housing more people than it's zoned for, we follow those steps. We report it to the buildings department, and then the buildings department will go out and investigate. So if there are buildings on your block that you feel that this is happening at, let us know, and then we'll contact the right city departments to try to get a building inspector out there. You have to be registered to have an SRO. An SRO is a single room occupancy building. And we really only have, I think, one or two that are licensed actually in the world. I have my own concerns about that because I get concerned about vulnerable populations and people being taken advantage of. We just had recently a mother and a child, minor child, that were booted out from the place that they were staying at, presumably because they couldn't continue to pay the rent for the room, and they are now unhoused. So it's a problem. They're myriad problem. Like, these aren't people who are criminals. These are people that are trying to find a better life. That's not always the case for everything, because we also had we have our fair share of troubled buildings where We have our own suspicions about, you know, whether it's gang activity or drug activity that's going on. Those things take time to investigate. I don't want to answer for the police, but we do. It is a constant sort of communication tree, and I don't have a great answer for you as to how we head it off, but I can tell you what we do in response when we do find out about those things. As I said at the beginning of this meeting, we don't know that there's an issue. There's nothing we can do about it. So we do rely on folks sharing information with us. If there's something going on, please let us know so that we can follow up with it, with the appropriate department, whether or not someone's running an illegal business out of their home or out of their building. It's not zoned for, it's not permitted for. You know, we've had people, you know, selling shoes out of their homes or, you know, running a restaurant, selling whatever. And like if you're running a business at all, it requires a license in the city of Chicago. Right, so if we know that something is suspicious going on, we follow up on those things and then we farm it out to the appropriate department. So that's how we follow up on things. And then when there's other things like, you know, if it's prostitution or drugs or anything like that, we make the police aware of it, and then they work with. I can let Commander Mark sort of comment on how the police handle that with various different units in CPD.
Just to, add to all of these, explanations, regarding these trouble buildings and crime buildings. We do work closely. A lot of times it does go unnoticed. We do have a lot of reports of trouble buildings, like buildings that are suspected of criminal activity, prostitution, you know, just squatters. We had one on 42nd and Emerald not too long ago. We took care of that right away. 31st and Low, there's a couple buildings we're looking at as well. 29th and Troop right here, just a month or so ago, we shut down an illegal business over there. They had a lot of parties, after parties, so. It all comes down to communication between you guys, to the ward, to my office. If you're not comfortable calling the ward, you can contact us anonymously through either my front desk or the CAPS office. If you have a building that you suspect that's engaged in criminal activity, let us know. I think we do have several officers in the 9th district that are trouble buildings officers. That's their job. They're in close contact with our vice unit, which we shut down a lot of several brothels, prostitution houses that were in the specific ward, in this ward. Recently, a lot of times it doesn't make the news, but we're on top of it. Again, it's constant communication between you and us and the ward office, and we try to, as soon as we get any information at all, we have to follow up on it. We don't blow anything off. Every tip, every call that comes into our office, we do some sort of investigation. Now, there's certain criteria that elevates that to a DHPS building, a drug house standing building, where we can follow up. We do forward it to Vice, and they do their investigation. If there's a certain amount of calls or a certain type of activity, prior calls for that location, that goes the case. Arrests from that location, that also adds the case up. So there is an investigation. These things take time. The one specifically at 42nd and Emerald, gangbangers, drug dealer was actually squatting in that location, throwing large parties in the middle of the night. We were called there, shut down the party, but this guy, the squatter, had a comment bill that was to that place. And these guys are pretty smart. This is what they do. So at that point, we couldn't really confirm that he actually lived there.
So it took us a few more days.
Took us a few days, but
Between the city
overall,
and the-
these investigations should take months. That particular building,
1 week.
1 week, done. We got hold of, building was in foreclosure. They knew that. We got hold of because when it's in foreclosure, these guys know the game. You know, the owner is usually long gone, the bank owns it. So now it's in process of being sold to another party. My trouble buildings officers got a hold of the old owner and made him aware of what was going on. We got complaints signed. He had that guy that was there had no permission to be in that building. Went back there and we locked him up. He came back out and he was storing drugs, basically a large quantity of narcotics. We got him, got the drugs, so he's gone. So that's one success story, but there's several that really nobody knows about, but we are out there doing it. Alderman Lee said, Sharon told us about 29th and Troop. Again, that one was done within 2 weeks. That was shut.
Just follow up on,
Yeah.
before lots of other people ask questions. So totally get it and understand the comment here too. That is a further down the line stretch about individuals that are committing crime, but density is also a significant issue. If you have streets where parking is an issue, or other houses don't have garages, then more people than are supposed to are occupying the space, then that causes additional people to have. Or they're further away, we're talking about safety issues, people who work in the service industry, come home late at night, feel for their safety, are concerned for their safety. But it all traces back to multiple things, but the example that I brought up, one building being refurbished, zoned for a 2-flat, then they're putting into 4, where there's renting by the rooms. Now 8 new cars that are on the block, or a house that comes to be empty, that is already an issue. So,
in those instances, call the ward, let them know the building address.
so there is one
Conduct
option left.
We have to conduct an investigation
Has happened.
to see if it's zoned properly, if they're following the specific
Will you-
ordinances.
Provide the address to us afterwards, and
Sure.
like, we'll do some more follow-up. And I'm mindful of the time, it's 6:55 and we have 3 more things to cover. I'll take one more. There's one here and one here. If we can keep it quick, just because I want to be mindful and respectful of everybody's time. I want to mention one other thing. One of the things that we have noticed is that we have people who are inexperienced landlords who are not renting to, or are not screening people appropriately, because I get very often landlords that come in that are trying to evict people that are tearing their places up, not paying their rent, and all of these things. And one of the things that we are working on with some local management companies and realtors is to do a workshop for would-be landlords or people who are currently landlords, to give them some tips and advice as to how to screen people better, or how to make sure that you've got all the right tools in place to ensure that people understand what their lease agreements are. Look, we just got a call today about a already troubled building where the tenant who was causing the problem sublet their apartment. They weren't supposed to sublet their apartment, and now they've sublet it to somebody else, who's causing even more problems. Those are, and we want to be balanced about everything here. So we have renters' rights as well. We get some of those calls as well for people coming in. But the majority of what we get in lately is landlords who are having trouble with their tenants. So part of what we've observed is that there's a need for people to be educated as well. And we want to make sure everybody's educated about what their rights are, and that, landlords know that tenants have rights as well. And that you can't just arbitrarily lock somebody out. No matter, renters do have rights, so they themselves have to follow the law so that themselves are not in violation of it. So we'll take this question here, and then we'll go here, and then we're gonna have to move on, okay? So that, either one of you, yeah.
Should the occupancy be on a 2-flat?
I don't know the answer to that question, and that's a buildings. The question, just so that everybody could hear it, was that the question was, what is the occupancy of a 2-flat? I can't answer that question. I don't know how big the 2-flat is, how many bedrooms, how many, there's.
It's got
So
2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room.
I don't know what the law is, or I don't know what's on somebody's lease, so that's not a question that I can actually answer.
Did you stated before, judging on the occupancy, the type of the building?
I think what you were referring to, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you suspected one of the buildings in your block has been refurbished to have multiple rooms, maybe, I'm guessing you're seeing way more than like an individual family coming in and out of
Those
it.
who know when you see it, what the specific number is, it's hard to say, but when you see it. Also, the 2-flat that is being rented for units, 5 units that is in to zone, but what the zoning specifically is, and you're asking.
And we have a running list of buildings that we're following with the buildings department, and it's a running list, and we're chasing the buildings department as well. To go investigate all of these buildings. So please know that we are, and I'm sorry that you haven't gotten a response yet. It's probably because we haven't gotten a response back yet, but we should be communicating that to you. So we'll do a better job of that if we can get your contact information. So, sir?
Yeah, I have a question about the ICE cooperation. You mentioned that if things get violent, then we will step in just to make sure that things aren't violent.
No bodily harm, and that goes for any citizen or any other jurisdiction. If there's violence, it's our duty to step in and keep everybody safe.
Does resisting arrest have violence?
It all depends, that, if you take case by case, if the subject is fighting law enforcement officials, whether ICE, DEA, FBI, Cook County Sheriff, if a subject is fighting, actively struggling and fighting with the law enforcement, or any other citizen for that matter, we have a duty to step in as law enforcement. Our job is to protect safety, life, bodily harm, and then property. So we have to enforce the law, so it goes to that type of, thinking, but we are not to help with their type of enforcement. We're not to assist them engage, warrants, we're not to go in and help them make arrests, that's their thing. But if there's like a melee, mob action, people fighting, throwing stuff, it's our duty as Chicago law, police department step in.
If they were resisting arrest and you stepped in, would you take them into custody of the Chicago?
Not necessarily, if they were the victims of that type of thing, they would probably arrest that subject. Now, again, it's case by case, but it's their jurisdiction, we're just there to preserve the peace, make sure nobody gets hurt. Whether it's the resistor and or law enforcement, we're make sure nobody gets hurt, and that's our job.
And just to finish out the conversation around ICE, we've been in contact and working with organizations like the Coalition for a Better Chinese American Community, Huitak Center in Chinatown, and the Chinese American Service League, to support running, Know Your Rights, workshops, early on when there was a lot of fear people coming to your homes, it was what to do if someone comes knocking at your door. That conversation has shifted a little bit now too, because we know that enforcement is just showing up in a lot of random places, even in places where people have no expectation of getting picked up. I don't agree with any of it, but that's not okay. That the federal government's not going after the people that they claim, are the criminals. These are people who are actually following rules. They're wearing ankle monitors. They're showing up for appointments, and this is what's happening. But we are working with the organizations that are sort of best positioned to be at the front line of the community to make sure people have safety plans in place too. What a safety plan looks like in this case is making sure that if you have children, who's going to take care of your children should you get picked up? Who's responsible for your finances? Who's going to make your house payments? How do you make sure that you're checking in with people on a regular basis so that someone knows if you're missing at some point? Unfortunately, these are the realities of today. Annie, did you have a quick question? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I did, and I'm sorry, I knew we keep going on this, but,
Yeah.
it seems like a paper.
Well, yeah.
Regarding the SNAP curfew ordinance, and actually how this relates to immigration enforcement as well. We hear a lot about immigration, there's a lot of, documented people living in our neighborhood. I'm sure that you know that even though Chicago is a sanctuary city, when it comes to people who are documented and have a visa, their visa can be revoked for any civil citation. So I wonder how you square the idea of increasing the likelihood of civil citations in this increased enforcement environment.
Sure. Yeah, so I don't necessarily think that they contradict. I'm gonna explain my position on it, and then we're gonna move on. If someone wants to talk to me about further, I'm happy to sit down and talk to you. I did support the SNAP curfew. I did co-sponsor that. I was one of the 26 or 27 aldermen that voted for it. I don't think it's going to be something that will be used very often, but I liked the fact that the police would have it as a tool. Announcing a SNAP curfew versus just issuing an order of dispersal is actually less, it's kinder and gentler to teenagers. Because if you disobey an order of dispersal, you can be picked up, arrested, and booked for that. If there's a SNAP curfew announced and you are caught up, you get a ticket. It's an ANOF versus an arrest. So that
violations still are a matter.
and I understand that. So that wasn't necessarily the perspective I was taking on it. We just talked about, there was a little mini takeover in Canaryville at Easter weekend. That was 80 to 100 teens that had collected and convened. They were throwing a big party. And I think the 9th district did a great job of dispersing them, but also look, the other thing that really helped is that it started pouring down rain. So, kids had to get out of there. There wasn't a place for them to just sort of like move to another place. But we have also seen 31st Street Beach when dispersals were done over there, we get the overrun. So my support for that is about, protecting the community and the fact that this ordinance, I really felt took a gentler approach to teenagers instead of having people disobey an order of dispersal and being arrested for it. That's just where I ended up on. And Annie, if you'd like to talk more, I'd be happy to, okay? We're gonna move on to the next agenda item. And we have some guests here with us from the Department of Planning and Development to talk about some great new grant programs.
Can I sit next to you?
You can definitely sit next to me. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah Jones. I'm with the Department of Planning and Development, Small Business Development Bureau, and I'm here to talk about giving you guys some money.
Yes, you like that?
I also was given this, and I know it's for safety, but if I feel anyone sort of dazed now, I'm gonna pull. These are. Our bureau is a new bureau. It's led by Deputy Commissioner Mary O'Connor. She is a business owner of herself, so we do have people who know what it's like to run a business, leading the charge of our small business advocacy and grant efforts. So today I'm going to walk you through several different grant programs that we have. Some of them have some things in common. Some of them are a little different. I will try not to get in the weeds on that stuff because it's all in the PowerPoint. You can go back and refresh. So don't feel like you have to take notes. I know that the 11th Ward is going to send this out to folks afterwards. I'm just gonna touch on things high level because what I really want to get to is what makes a strong application for our grants as opposed to really just sort of like the nitty gritty of the grant details, because we have several resources that are available to our small business owners that will get into the weeds and answer all of the questions that you have. And if you come up with one that we haven't already thought of, we have our contact information available at the end of the slide. So I'll just kick it off. So we're gonna go on program details, application tips, and then some resources that you guys can take advantage of. So we'll start with the program details. Just this slide is sort of a summary of what we have available in our on our handout over here, as well as what's on the website. So just not to confuse everyone, I'm gonna just high level say that some grants are competitive processes, some are not a competitive process. Some disperse grant awards up to 250,000, some are a little less. It's all on the slide. So we'll kick it off to the going into grant specific details on the next slide. How to apply. So we have very user-friendly URL handles now. So you'll see a theme here of chicago.gov/community development grant, chicago.gov/SPIF. Except for workforce solutions, we're still working on that one. But most of the applications, if not all of them, you apply through our submittable platform. So it's a free platform. You just have to sign up and then you have access to it. And all of our grants can generally be found through that platform. Next slide. So let's talk about my favorite grant program, the Community Development Grant Small Program. It's my favorite because I run it and I think I do a pretty good job. Our community development grant provides up to 75% of reimbursement for eligible expenses, up to $250,000 for capital improvements to spaces. So if you're looking to move into a new space and it used to be a dog grooming studio and now you want to turn it into a restaurant, the type of work that you would be doing in that space, we would be able to fund up to $250,000 worth. So generally in our application, we're looking for detailed construction budgets because we use those construction budgets in order to determine your grant amount, so we want them to be accurate. We're looking that you guys have secured a little bit of funding generally across the board for our programs. We're looking to see that at the time of your application, you've submitted or you've secured at least 50% of your total project cost financing. That is not to be prohibitive of the grant application. We just want to make sure that you have some skin in the game. And since all of our grant programs are reimbursement-based grant process, we want to make sure you have enough cash to bankroll the project as you move forward. We do just want to, I'm going to keep saying this, you'll hear me say it a lot, these are reimbursement-based grant programs. But we have gotten better about making sure that there's incremental disbursements as opposed to how we used to do in the past where you apply, you finish the project, and then we give you the full grant award at the end. So we're trying to be a little bit more conscious of that's not, the most equitable way to approach business development.
I quite understand the violence. Are you talking about small businesses or are you talking about
Small businesses. So our Department of Housing handles all things related to home ownership, but if you are a small business owner in the city of Chicago, we do have grant, opportunities available to you. All right, and then I will move on to our next program. So this is our Small Business Improvement Fund. As I mentioned with our Community Development Grant, it is an application process. SPIF is not competitive. So if you're in a SPIF district, you just have to wait for your SPIF, application window to open. We have the calendar up on the website as well as a locator tool, for, you to see if you are SPIF eligible. You just put your application in. It's very basic at the beginning. We just want to see what you're doing, what you're eligible for. What you're doing, what you're eligible for, and you know, then we do a lottery if the demand exceeds the supply, and we go down that list. And again, similar, it's up for $150,000 or $250,000. Commercials are $150,000. Industrial businesses are $250,000. And we will reimburse you if you're selected through that process. We also have a wait list to where we can move people up on the wait list for the capital improvements to your space.
And just to mention that we have tips in the ward, the 35th and Halsted, Archer Western tips. The Archer Western tip just actually closed for small business improvement funds. And sometimes what we're challenged with is businesses applying for these grant programs. So we wanted to just make sure that we are getting the word out, all of you, especially if you know people who own businesses in the ward, or if you own businesses in the ward yourself. There are funds out there. I think in our Archer Western, I think it was maybe $1 million that was put up.
I'm not sure the specifics.
Okay.
That's Nora, but I can check. And I can-
Yeah. So the money's there. They're from your tax dollars. If you live in the TIF district, you know, those dollars are being set aside to help improve businesses in and around the neighborhood in those districts.
And again, this is a lot of information on the grant details to throw at you. I don't expect anyone who's a business owner to memorize every single thing. So there are materials all over the DPD website in order to refresh, and you can go back and revisit, and then I'm sure that you'll be sending this out afterwards. So it'll also be in there as well. Let's briefly touch on NOF. So our NRF program is our Neighborhood Opportunity Fund program. Unlike our CDG program, which is citywide, there's no boundaries. You just have to be a business in the city of Chicago. Our SPIF and our NOF programs do have specific geographic eligibility requirements. There are a couple of NOF pockets in the 11th ward. These are similar to the community development grants, up to $250,000, permanent improvements that you're making to your building, and it's a competitive application process. We also have an additional $50,000 that you can receive to help you sort of with the project management of trying to be a business owner going through a construction project, and assist there. Let's see. Let's go to the next slide, Zoe. This is our Workforce Solutions, and I got David Diaz in the back with me. He helps on this program. Our Workforce Solutions program, we are so excited to announce that TIP Works, which some of you may be familiar with, which is a workforce training reimbursement program, has been rebranded and revitalized and workshop for the better as our Workforce Solution program. This is a grant that will give you up to $250,000, funding 100% of the cost, up to $250,000 for workforce trainings. So that's training your incumbent employees, that's training your new hires for on-the-job training, leadership development, upskilling. It's all eligible, and we're very excited to announce it. It used to be just if you had to be in a TIF district in order to a business in a TIF district in order to receive the funding, but now due to our housing and economic development bond from Mayor Johnson, we are able to offer it citywide. So that is really exciting. But oh, sorry, I keep like alluding to the fact that I'm gonna get the application tips, but we have a lot of programs. So our larger grant programs are not managed by the Small Business Development Bureau. They're managed by our financial incentives division. They are pretty similar in terms of paying for capital improvements that you're making to your spaces, but they're for more of like the larger developments. So they have different requirements, because I always say the more zeros behind your grant award, the more stuff you have to probably turn in for us. But you know, juice is usually where we squeeze on those programs. So they're also included consolidated into our community development grant webpage. So you'll find small, medium, and large all there
under one roof. All right, now I think I'm gonna get into application tips. I've already mentioned this, reimbursement structure, well, you wanna go back to eligibility? Eligibility, so, these are for business owners, entrepreneurs, property owners, nonprofit organizations, and community developers that are located in the city of Chicago. As I mentioned, certain programs do have geographic specific boundaries. They can be for commercial, mixed use, manufacturing projects, and new construction and vacant sites are also eligible for our CDG and NOF, programs. So generally, it used to have to be rehab based, but now if you wanna build a whole building ground up, you can apply for these as well. And then there are some geographic eligibilities for our SPIF and NOF program. Let's talk eligible expenses. Generally what we say is if you turn the building upside down, you shake it, it doesn't fall out, and you wouldn't have to destroy it in order to get it out of there, it's an eligible expense. So things like masonry, new roofs, HVAC, new flooring, drywall. We don't cover furniture and equipment. So no matter how much you bolt it down, if you promise me if I tip this building over, it's not gonna fall out, I don't care. Can't pay for it. So, and for our NOF and CDG, programs, we also cover some acquisition expenses. And then soft costs related to the development as well are eligible. So that's your engineers, your architects, your interior designer, what have you. Those soft costs are eligible as part of the larger grant program as well. So ineligible expenses or ineligible in general. So you can't be a government entity in order to apply. You can't be a home-based business, and I'm sorry about that, but generally we can't approve any improvements that are made to your home because technically business could close in your home and then you just got a brand new office paid for by the city of Chicago. So no home-based businesses. If your project won't be completed in the required time frame, generally we give 2 years. So if you're thinking this is going to be a 10-year endeavor, probably not a good fit for this program. If your construction has already been completed, that's the other thing that's really hard, and that's why the 11th Ward has invited us out here, because if your project is already done, I can't reimburse you any money for that. I know it sucks, I don't like it, you know, in terms of just like, I wish I could help everyone, but we do need to, there's a lot of paperwork that's really hard to back into, if you've already completed the project. So generally, we try and catch you before you start construction. And if you've received a grant from one of these programs already within a 3-year period, then that also, there is a prohibitive period of 3 years where you are ineligible for the grant program. That's because we're trying to spread the wealth around. You know, we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity. All right, now application tips. So here's what we're screening for. So for our competitive processes, which is our NOF and our CDG application, it is a competitive process, which means you do have to apply. So what we're screening for generally is readiness and feasibility. So that's, you know, the itemized construction budget from a contractor with bids to back it up. That's having documents from a state licensed architect if you're using an architect. At least 50% of the total project cost financing secured. And I'm not picky about that. If that's your personal savings, if that's a line of credit, if it's a loan from an institution, 50% of your total project cost, whatever that may be. You know, if grandma's writing you a check for 50,000, let me see, you know, blank out the account information. I'll take it. But if you're a startup, we do a lot of startups. So it's a detailed business plan or profit and loss statements if you're an existing business from the last 3 years, and then tax documents as well if you're an existing business. So that's just all to demonstrate that you are ready, that this project is feasible. You know what you want to do, you can get it done, and that you know that you have some skin in the game for that. Site control, you gotta have some sort of claim to the property. So we will take leases, we will take deeds, letter of intents as well, but it has to be signed by both parties. So it has to be you and your potential landlord signing it as well. And then if you are leasing a property, we do need to see that your landlord has given you permission to turn his dog grooming studio into a restaurant. Let's go to the next slide. Financing, have I harped on it enough? 50% of your total project costs. And on the next slide, we're going to show you sort of what a good financing table that's in our application looks like. So it's a little tiny, you'll be able to take a look at it, but here you'll see that, like, you know, they've uploaded proof that they have secured a certain amount of money in their checking, that there's a loan from an institution that's also been secured. And on the other table, you'll see that their funding is anticipated, but there's no proof that they, like, it's not really secured yet. They've included the city of Chicago grant as part of their construction table, so you can't, or excuse me, financing table, so you can't include it as your, financing because you don't have it yet. Generally, we don't like when we see the grant on there, so don't include it. Next slide. So the project budget, so we absolutely need to see that you have line items in your budget that are accurate, because we use that to determine what your grant award is. So if you're only taking a guess that your grant is 30,000, or you just put together a real quick bid, or excuse me, that masonry is only 30,000, you put together a real quick, and then, you get the grant, and now you go and get the itemized bids, and you realize, oh my God, masonry is gonna be 90,000. Well, I'm holding the grant that you applied for, so I can't raise it once it's been applied for. So that's why we really want you to know, like, what this project is gonna cost when you apply. Any applicants who are accepted will be required to get a comparable bid, but that's only if you're accepted, so don't worry about that. And that's because we wanna see, for your own benefit as well, that, you're not getting taken to the cleaners on like some lumber costs for your, get something, generally good practice in construction. Let's get a couple from how things are going. Also, I can't tell you a number of times people have cracked open a wall and, oh my gosh, now all of a sudden plumbing is gonna be twice the cost. We encourage people to have project contingencies, because I've never seen anyone who came in perfectly how it was planned from the get-go, maybe once or twice, but I think those are the exception, not the rule. So construction contingencies are really, really encouraged. So we'll go to the next slide. All right, so this is just a summary of what I talked about. We're looking for readiness. Are you ready to do the project? Do you have bids? Do you have financing? Do you have site control? And then next, feasibility. So do you have permits been issued? Do you have a detailed business plan showing that you think this business will thrive and succeed? Do you have a profit and loss statement that shows that you are moving, your business is healthy and can take on additional expenses through this construction? Community impact. It's not because she's sitting next to me, but it is, we do want you to speak to your local elected officials, your community members, your chamber of commerce's, your neighbors, people on that commercial corridor. Show us how this fills a gap in the neighborhood. Show us how that you want to be a part of your community, and that you want to work and bring about a vibrant feel with your business for the community. And then this last stage is just, you don't need to worry about that. That's our due diligence checks. We check our zoning, we check our licensing. We want to make sure that the business you're proposing actually can exist in the building it's going into, in the place it's going into. So, manufacturing facility right next to a school probably usually doesn't work out. So, here's some common application mistakes. Generally, for a lot of these, I'm asking that if you say you have 50,000 in your checking account, I want you to show proof of that. You don't have to show me the account numbers, please redact everything like that, but I do want to see that. If you have a deed, upload it. So a huge mistake that we see is that people say, I have site control, but then they don't upload any proof of that. So I don't really know what to do there. Do I take them at their word? Do I not? Like, generally we err on the side of like, okay, maybe they don't have site control. Poor time management. So please do not wait until 11:50 p.m. on August 15th to upload this application. One, if you do run into a technical issue, people probably aren't awake to help you out with that. Two, August 16th is my birthday. On August 15th at 11:50 p.m., I will not be checking my email. So if that is enough thing to remind you to just please, if you're interested, upload and get your application submitted before. I hope that's something that can like stick in your brain.
I'll just say too, just to chime in here, and I know we're going into a lot of detail. We got a report back from DPD not all that long ago about where people drop off, right? They'll apply for it, and then something like more than 50% of people don't finish the process, and we're leaving money on the table. There's money available, especially with these new grant programs that are not geographically tied to a TIF, which is huge because we haven't had that opportunity before with this economic development grant that has opened up lots more opportunities. So I want to make sure that the information's out there as much as possible, and that we're doing whatever we can to help small businesses access these funds. So we don't want people to get lost in the shuffle or feel so overwhelmed by the process that they don't see it through. We want everybody to have a good chance. And I'm sure they'll be willing to come back and do individual work with folks later, but well, I'm just mindful of the time.
I know, I'm gonna wrap it up. All right, I think I only have a couple slides left.
We have one more.
Yes, I do. It's just how you guys reach me and how you find me and you answer. I ask all the questions and I answer every single one as best I can. So you'll see the resource websites that we have here. On the next page, I believe you'll see our personal email. So I'm Hannah Jones. It's very easy to remember. If you need to remember how to spell my name, it's two of everything, darling. It's HANNAH, dot Jones. We got Joshua Sun with NOF and Nora Curry with SPIF, as well as Lethea Everest with our workforce solutions. So, as Alderwoman mentioned, we want to put business, money in the hands of our businesses in the city. We love that we don't have, every grant program that's just tied to a specific boundary anymore. And we are trying to be as accessible as possible. We're currently translating the application into Chinese. We have resources available, for, gosh, we got, Korean, Chinese, Polish, Spanish, I'm forgetting one. Application, materials, out there. So we are trying to be equitable. Everything I'm telling you is already on the website. We have an informational webinar recorded. The jokes aren't as good. I don't have this, but I didn't have to use it. So, yeah, so we are trying to be out here and trying to get this in the hands of people you know. So maybe you're not a business owner, but maybe you have a friend that is. Please tell them about this. Please email us, ask questions. We love, the more people I get applying, the more it helps me to justify more money. So, apply.
Yes. Thank you very much for coming and for giving us all of this great news.
That was a lot to take in. Imagine how much it is to say it. So, thank you guys so much. Thank you for having us
Thank
now.
you.
One real quick.
Sure.
Sort of tangential question. Is there a city program for people who want to start a business or confused by licensing and LLCs and zoning?
So there is, the small business center at the, BACP. It is on the 8th floor of City Hall. And you don't need an appointment for that. You can just walk up, and they will set you up with somebody who can walk you through those processes.
So the difference between the small business bureau that we are a part of in our planning department and BACP is generally BACP helps with everything related to the operations or licensing, business coaching. We come in when you're looking at a brick and mortar location, we'll help you renovate it, helping to create vibrant commercial corridors, aesthetically pleasing commercial corridors. So that's sort of the best way to, I think, differentiate between the two of us.
We also have a contact with the Chinese Mutual Aid Association that comes into Chinatown Bridgeport area. They have their own small business development center, so if there's something specific, you can let us know. We're happy to introduce you to them. They've helped other people in the ward before. And last but not least, and then thank you for being so patient, we have, thank you, last slide here, our last presenters for the night are from Amazon. So if I can have Sarah Glavin and Julian Faderly join us at the front of the room. Yes, come sit next to me. The Amazon facility on Halsted and Archer is what we're gonna be talking about today. I'm gonna let these guys give you the update, but short story is that facility is going to be brought online and operational. So we wanted, always promise to be able to keep everybody in contact about what's happening over there. These guys are gonna talk about the timeline for when they're gonna open, answer any questions. It's been a few years since this conversation has happened. So, they reached out to me a little while ago and wanted the opportunity to join one of our community meetings to really kind of roll this out, take questions from folks about concerns that they might have about the facility opening. So I'll turn that over to you, Julian.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Alderman. So yeah, it has been a while, while you haven't seen us for a little bit. This is really just us reintroducing Amazon to the community. This is definitely not gonna be our first or last conversation with you all. When we come into community and open a site, we continue to stay engaged through a variety of ways. And that's not just through the Alderman, but through some ways that Sarah will talk about a little bit. My name is Julian Faderly. It's good to be back here in McGuane Park. I'm gonna talk a little bit about just a little site history, dust off some of the history a little bit. 2019, 2020 is when Amazon worked closely with the city to design, negotiate, and start to build out the site. Happy to answer questions about the process that we went through with DPD. It was a pretty extensive process where we solicited and addressed, I think, a lot of concerns from the community. The site development was contingent on several factors as well. Everything from making sure that van and truck loading was away from the community over on Hillock, to making sure that site access for the larger vehicles was exclusively through Halsted. Noise abatement, some site beautification, right? Some of you may have noticed the Riverwalk is now kind of extended down there. There's some public art there that we've worked on with the Albany as well. So we went through extensive process with DPD for the design build. We were scheduled to open around 2022. At that time, for various reasons, we decided to pause the build out of that project. And Sarah and I have been pestering folks internally to move ahead and launch the site. We're really happy to be here tonight to share that the site is going to be operational this year. So by the end of the summer, you guys should start to see some more activity at the site as the site preps for launch. Will be fully operational by the fall. So what is this site? It's known as a last mile facility. So these are the types of facilities that deliver packages to you, your neighbors, your loved ones. The site's about 125,000 square feet. It's going to employ north of 200 employees. One of the questions that we've gotten a lot is about traffic when people are going to be coming in and out. The majority of the activity at the site is actually going to be after hours overnight. That's when we'll be seeing box truck and semi truck traffic coming into the site off of Halsted. So really those overnight hours. We don't anticipate that they're going to be very more than 25 large trucks coming in a day. We're going to have employees working there, again, primarily overnight. And then delivery vans that everyone is familiar with. Those are going to be kind of queuing up and departing the facility after daytime rush hour. So we aim to launch those when traffic is abated during the daytime hours. So think anywhere from 9:30 later. So again, the site's gonna be operational, fully operational by this year. As I mentioned, a part of our work is really to engage with the community, work with folks like Nicole, work with local businesses, residents, and civic organizations. I'm going to hand it off to Sarah. I want to allow enough time for questions here, but there's some important work that Sarah and her team are working on, and I want to make sure you hear about.
So we're local to the Chicago area, so we're not flying in from Seattle. I know a lot of times when I talk to people, they think that everyone who works for Amazon drives a truck. There actually are also about 2,500 corporate employees who work downtown, many of whom are probably your neighbors. It's a great commuting location from Bridgeport to the Loop. So I work specifically, my name is Sarah Glavin. I work specifically in working across Amazon's businesses with community and civic organizations. So I'm the interface for community-based nonprofits, for Chicago Public Schools, organizations that have relationships with Amazon for a myriad of reasons. So you probably know this if you see any of our advertising, that 60% of the products sold on our site are sold by small and medium-sized businesses. So business owners who have retail operations, brick and mortar, or work from their own production that use us to do their shipping and delivery. So I work a lot with small businesses and chambers to make sure we make it really simple to work with us, whether people choose to use us for your shipping method or do that on their own time. We know that we're only gonna be successful and bring resources to community if people like the selection that they see available on our website, so. That's part of the business, but then, we're really fortunate that that's one segment of Amazon's work. So we also have a large employee base here that works for Amazon Web Services, which is basically the technology behind lots of websites you probably use, Netflix, United Airlines, Grubhub. So we also work a lot with technology and workforce development related to technology. So the other side of the community work that I do a lot of is working with Chicago Public Schools, working with university partners like city colleges to make sure that young people who are coming into career path understand that there are a lot of different job opportunities related to technology that we can reduce barriers to. So I'm one of the largest funder of early childhood education and computer science in Chicago Public Schools. We work with a lot of schools in the neighborhood already, making sure that teachers have the tools to really communicate computer science foundations as early as kindergarten. And I know that sounds scary, but workforce is changing rapidly, and we want to make sure that educators that may have gone through their training 10 or 15 or 20 years ago still feel really confident in the skills that they're bringing in classroom today to meet the needs of career development for students everywhere. So that's a large part of the work as well. And as Julian said, you'll see me in the neighborhood. I am a regular attendee at lots of community meetings around the city because we have facilities in a lot of different neighborhoods. So you'll see me regularly. I'm easy to get a hold of. I answer LinkedIn. The Alderman's office has information. But if you have thoughts about where you feel like Amazon should be showing up in community, whether that's in partnership with schools or small business or some subjects I haven't even brought up, let me know. We do a lot of work with public art, and we've been very pleased to work with the chamber on a project that the Alderman's office was excited about on beautifying the viaduct, just coming into the area where our building will be, so along Archer and Halsted. So that's a local artist in Bridgeport that was identified through a selection process that the chamber led. And so those kinds of projects are what I'm listening for, because we don't know how to show up in the neighborhood unless I'm listening to residents. So my job is really to do less talking and more listening, frankly. And that's what I'll be around to do. So you guys think about areas that might be helpful for us, and I'd love to learn more about things that are driving goals across the board. Separately, I'll say that related to workforce, I also am the interface with workforce development organizations that support staffing across our buildings. We're a low barrier employer, which we find that especially in what we're hearing around workforce development is an area that can be challenging for a lot of communities because we don't require our early career talent to have completed high school or GED, but we will pay for their high school or GED completion upon coming on board with us. We also prepay for college tuition. It's not a reimbursement program. So we work a lot with the career development side of Chicago Public Schools for students who aren't sure if they want to pursue post-high school education right when they graduate. After 90 days of employment, we'll prepay their college tuition at city colleges, National Louis, CSU, lots of other neighboring universities. So we work a lot in partnership with that side of the work as well. As you're talking to friends or neighbors that are like kind of wondering, and everyone's like, it's this big box of a building. I don't know if I want to work in that space. We can do a lot of educational kind of pre-launch information. So I'm looking forward to working with the Alderman's office to put together a roundtable for workforce development partners to really kind of demystify what it is to work in the building, what opportunities are like. Starting wage for the building will be $21 an hour with benefits. So in addition to prepaid college tuition, we also have mental health care, paid maternity and paternity leave, things that a lot of early career opportunities don't offer. So we want to just make that really clear and make sure organizations understand how to access jobs. To Julian's point, we'll be launching as early as the fall, but you'll start to see job postings as early as the 4th of July. So if you have workforce organizations that you know are supporting partners in the neighborhood, we'd be very, very pleased to be introduced to them to make sure that they have the information they need to support candidates who might be interested in employment. And the other thing I'll share just briefly is that we are not a one-size-fits-all approach to community giving and partnership with nonprofit. So the work that I do in the Bridgeport, Canaryville, Chinatown community will not look the same as the work I do in West Palm Park, or in Cicero, or in Melrose Park. Because every community is different and has very different needs and specific things they're looking for partnership with us on. So I'd say ask and I'll listen and I'll try to figure out if either within my own side of the business or one of the other business lines, there's something we can do to help you affect the change that you want to see. So that's my part. And I'm happy to talk more. I had some flyers. If you have any individuals who are interested in the application process, I'm happy to talk to people one-off, especially as well as setting up this roundtable conversation. But aside from that, we'll also be working with the South Lake Loop Chamber on some small business projects. We want to really make sure people understand kind of what some of the business opportunities are as the building is coming into the community, because we also hire vendors to support operations of the business as well. So we want to make sure that that's easy and people kind of know how to navigate that process.
So just in closing, you'll be seeing us in these meetings moving forward. We'll be providing updates and information to Alderwoman Lee as we have them. And then obviously as a part of the work that Sarah does, she's going to be out in the community hearing from you all to see how we can be most responsive to your needs. Last but not least, we'll also have a process set up once we have site leadership and it's staffed up, where you all will be able to email site leadership directly about questions and concerns as well, that we'll be monitoring as well. So with that, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks. I just wanted to mention a couple things, as we started this conversation about the facility opening. I wasn't here for it originally, and I know just as a community member, I observed some of the stuff that was going on. They're fully aware of the traffic concerns around the entryway on Halsted and the bike lane that's over there. So we're gonna be working with CDOT to make sure that the timing on the light's good, that it's, timed the right way, that we make sure that we maintain that the city of Chicago is keeping those bike lanes cleaned. Look, one of the things that I think is gonna be great about the facility opening is that someone's gonna be using it. There's going to be more activity in the area. They're gonna have facilities management, which means that the Riverwalk and all of that area is gonna be maintained on a very regular basis as well. My interactions thus far with Amazon have all been very positive. They've been receptive to the concerns that we have. And, we talked about potentially partnering on some bike safety things. We've got a great cycling community within the 11th ward. We've got folks that do bike riding with families and everything. So I think there's gonna be some opportunities for us to work together on stuff like that, but also keeping the community clean. We've got great garbage brigades that go out and do cleanups. The Bridgeport Alliance is another group I know that Amazon has interacted with in the past. So I think there's lots of great opportunities. I want to thank you all for all of the support that you provided to the community thus far. They support pretty much every single one of the back to school activities that happens in and around the ward for many years now. With that, if folks have questions specifically for the folks at Amazon, please go ahead.
Yeah, you said there's gonna be 2 good job openings.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
You said primarily in overnight shift.
So most of the activity at the site will be overnight. Yeah, so it's like, basically separating and preparing deliveries to go out the next day.
So I'd say that when you see postings, it will allow you to select a shift. So there are some positions that are, what we would say, like as drivers come back to the building, if they're taking returns or they're not able to do deliveries, there are some afternoon opportunities too. And it's very clear as you go through the links, the shift time and the shift dates. So we usually operate a front half, back half week schedule. So you're working kind of the front half of the week or the back half of the week, so you don't work both days on the weekend. But
We're curious about the opportunities.
yeah, so oh no, absolutely.
Yeah. Like what kinds of jobs are gonna be offered? It's primarily like night shifts, like those are extremely difficult shifts, and I'd be curious about the wages that you guys had in mind for such a difficult shift.
Yeah, starting wage is $21 an hour with benefits, and that there are shift differentials for times and for the coverage. Yeah, but we're also happy to kind of have some associate or shift leads come in to talk at a meeting.
Yeah.
If you want to talk.
Yeah, and we're at the 11th ward has
What the day in the life job looks like.
we're planning our fall, job fair as well, so
Oh,
I'll make
that'd
sure
be
that you're there, but we can. As you're ramping up, we're happy to have something more detailed for anybody that's interested. Obviously, we want people from the community to work in the community. 200 jobs is nothing to sneeze at, to be able to be in close proximity, even with the odd hours, would be a good thing.
And we also
Appreciate the
have,
question.
some hiring that'll be happening to support, drivers. So if there are individuals that are primarily focused on day shift, and wanna, consider driving positions, the same benefit eligibility, prepaid college tuition, those things exist for drivers as well.
Yeah, if there's community workforce organizations that you're connected with, we're happy to meet with them and kind of prep them on what that process looks like.
Anna, did you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to get verification around the vehicle count, because when this was applied for DPD, it was to be 16 tractor trailers per day. But then the traffic study had said, 43 tractor trailers per day, usually it's at 25. We wanna get 30 around that, and then, the traffic study from the Taylor, it was at 232 light commercial vehicles, 143 flex vehicles, and 261 employee vehicles per day. Are those, have those numbers changed?
I think I have all of those in my head. I'll try to go through those. So, I believe the traffic study kind of, ran a maximum, model. Our plan is only right now 25 trailers or box trucks, a day. As far as the like delivery vans, right now it's around. Again, we haven't launched yet. This is what we're anticipating, around 200 a day. And then there are gonna be about 200, 200 plus employees at the site. Who are gonna be working there in like full-time and part-time capacity. And just as like as a frame of reference, if you imagine the site, and this is some of the feedback that it sounds like the process and kind of what was discussed several years ago. One of the requests from DPD was that all the truck and van traffic be located as close to Halsted as possible, away from the community of Hillock. The employee parking is gonna be primarily on the west side of the building.
Off of Sonor?
Yeah.
Yeah,
With that said, the Sonor and Hillock, if you've been in back, that little kind of turnabout back there, you'll see some gates. Those are gonna remain closed. Those aren't gonna be accessible to employees, trucks, vans. That's just for emergency access to the site for police or fire. So,
When I asked in 2020, they didn't know anything about it.
yeah, so I can speak to the process that we go through when we launch a site with police and fire. They're one of the first people or like entities that come in the building, not only to kind of get a sense of what the interior of the site is like, but what the exterior is like too. The short answer is yes, police and fire will have access to the site.
And then flex vehicles, so there's still gonna be flex drivers.
Right now, we don't have a plan to have flex drivers, so.
what is a flex driver? Sorry.
Yeah, so
I didn't know what it was.
Amazon also offers a service where you can, as a private citizen, pick up a shift similar to DoorDash or Uber Eats.
Oh,
You can pick up a delivery route and deliver out of your personal vehicle. And when you go on Amazon and you see that there's a delivery available within a couple hours, that's usually delivered through an Amazon Flex driver. And we don't have any plans to do that at this site this time.
and the vehicles for delivery, because I seem to recall that the facility was built specifically for electric vehicles. Is
Yeah.
that still the plan?
Absolutely. So by the end of the year, we anticipate it'll be primarily EVs operating out of that facility to start out. Just full cards on the table. We don't think it will be, and that's primarily because the charging infrastructure hasn't been built out yet. There'll be, north of 140 kind of commercial grade EV chargers at the site. We're working with ComEd to complete those. And then, yeah, you've seen those Rivian EVs, those are gonna be located at that site as well. And again, we anticipate the majority of the vehicles at the site would be EVs by the end of the year.
Other questions over here?
Hi, I'm Ellen, and I'm going around through the life does have this you know, the plan development layout, traffic management. You mentioned some of them, how are you guys gonna enforce and manage those?
So I'm just gonna repeat the question to make sure people online can hear. So the question was about traffic management. Apparently when the facility was first built, there were some traffic studies done and they were supposed to be managed a certain way. The question was, how will Amazon enforce the traffic flow and the management for their employees in the traffic?
So I'm gonna try to remember all of them, and you can keep me honest here. So going from west to east, as I mentioned, with site access, close to where you live along Hillock, that site access is gonna be limited only to emergency use, so police and fire. Employees will be able to access the site through Corbett off of, Archer. And then, box trucks, delivery vans, and trucks are limited to accessing the site off of Halsted. As a part of, the plan design, we also, worked with CDOT to install the light there. I drove by there on my way here today to confirm that it is up and active. It was actually red when I was coming south on Halsted, so, that was another one of the traffic mitigation steps. As far as enforcing the agreements with our drivers and with people coming in and out of the site, we are constantly in communication with site leadership and drivers about local rules and regulations. And as the Alderwoman alluded to, we've actually had discussions about how do we train our drivers and make sure that, you know, the bike lane there on Halsted is something that is elevated to them because of how many folks use that. We're hoping that the light there is going to mitigate behavior across the board. But again, you know, our drivers are trained not only to adhere to all traffic laws and rules, but also site-specific rules, and then any community needs that arise as well.
So, with the employees, how many employees do you expect to have? I understand.
So there are gonna be at least 200 employees there a day, parked over on that west side of the
And they're using it for it?
Yeah, pardon?
For
So-
the-
No, just so what he said, and keep me honest here. CNOR is always gonna be locked and only open for emergencies.
Yeah.
The employees will be directed to access, their only access point to the parking lot will be off of Corbett.
Okay, and as you know, that special Archer is congested and if you want to get into the sunshine lane, you have to do this turn lane. People who want to get into the northbound lane, might have cross traffic, that's fine, right? So, we can expect congestion in that area when shifts change, correct?
I'm only speculating, but potentially.
How do we manage that? That's a matter of us. There's no, like, there's a median, there's a break in the median right there. But even, CTA drivers stop routing in and out of the CTA train station there.
Yeah.
And traffic goes really fast. So that's a potential mess. And it's a mess that interferes with that's presidents. And like, that people just pretty.
I think that's something that we can take up again with CDOT in particular, though, in Amazon aside. That has been a bit of a hot spot for us. I mean, I was actually in my car when a pedestrian was hit. I clearly did not hit them. But I was in there, I like hopped out of my car and like stopped traffic to help this individual. I know how dangerous it is over there. So let me get back to CDOT to see what other traffic signal we can put in. We've toyed with the idea of a light, because that bus coming, the turnaround is very complicated, and we don't have particularly nice drivers that come through the neighborhood all the time, so very few people are actually willing to like slow down and let a bus go through and make sure that people are going through the intersection slowly. But that is something that we've been working on. I'll take it back up with CDOT, especially in light of the fact that there is going to be increased traffic. And what we don't want people doing is, pedestrian cars aren't supposed to go through that little drive around, that turnaround for the CTA. And I can just see if you're going the wrong direction and you've missed the turn, you might want to go and make that sort of illegal turnaround there. So I think that's one of the things, educating your employees on, like, here's how you access it. If you happen to miss it, you're gonna have to go down and around and like how to get back to the entrance. But I'll make a note of that to make sure that we talk to CDOT about it, and let's see what we can come up with to make sure that we're and it may take them starting work so that we understand what the traffic patterns look like before we can actually take some solid steps to that. But that's something that I'll flag for CDOT in terms of just looking out in that area for better potential signage and signals in the area.
Yeah, and I can also share with other sites that we've launched, after we've launched, and we've worked really closely with the community and the local elected representatives to address exactly those types of problems, whether it's signage, education, stoplights, you name it. We're always happy to consider and advocate for those types of steps. I'll also say, as a part of the plan design process, one of the reasons why the city was supportive of the site was proximity to the Orange Line and the potential for employees to not have to drive, right? Use public transportations, a little more readily accessible than some of our other sites. So that was certainly a selling point.
I have just one question.
Okay. How about we go to the gentleman sitting next to you, and then we'll go over to Matt. Okay.
I have a question. I just want to confirm, is the entrance, for the employees are Fallback and Austin?
So my understanding is, according to our agreement with DPD, so our employees who are working inside the facility, so taking their personal vehicles, they access the site on Corbett off Barcher. And then vans, box trucks and semi trucks would be accessing the site solely off of Halsted. So like the larger commercial vehicles are only allowed to access the site off of Halsted. And then the streets, Sinor and Hillock on the far west side of the development, those are only for emergency access.
Okay, so most of the time they should be closed, right? The employees are not.
The vast majority, unless there's an emergency.
Sinor, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And Sinor, one thing we do, working with the community, sometimes we'll open up our parking lots for, community fairs, shredding events, things like that. In those instances, there might be different access and kind of traffic access for the site, but by and large, those access points on the west will be closed.
Yeah, because we live in a very, around the facilities.
Yeah,
And we used to like have kids biking.
Yeah.
Around, and those areas are usually very quiet.
Yeah.
And we're just concerned that it's employing the highway, and the Senora Street is bent, right? It's not like a straight road. So people are not familiar with that area. It's like very easy to have an accident over there
yeah.
with young kids.
It's our intention to not have have those access points open at all. They should be locked, actually, as of now. I think right now, there's only chain link fences up over there. If they haven't installed the kind of lockable gates that are accessible by they're called malt boxes by the fire department, those should be coming in shortly. But again, that area should be clear of any type of employee traffic. And again, this is the beginning of the conversation. So if you have any concerns about that. If there are some issues, talk to the alderwoman, and we'll be in touch, in subsequent meetings, and, you know, we're happy to, as soon as we have it up and running, have any, kind of community feedback come in to, the site leadership.
Yeah, we live there, right, so we're,
Yeah.
turning, this is extracting, this is going on shit side. So at nighttime, it's very quiet. I was just concerned about people parking cars there and turning on their radios or going very fast. You know, so that's my concern.
I completely hear that, and we'll work with you to make sure that doesn't happen.
Is there any kind of a Google or like? I see that looks like there are some speed bumps. But some of the main roads around there's no speed bumps. And you know, it's a pretty big site, so cars inside, they could speed up and the noise would be, you know, all.
So, sorry.
I'll take this one, because if it's not on their property, it's not really Amazon's responsibility. So on Sonora itself, if you're asking for speed bumps, we can.
No, I'm talking about inside the parking.
Oh, inside the parking lot, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Inside the parking lot, there's all sorts of, you know, traffic easing. So there are speed bumps, and then once there's more cars in the lot, you know, folks will have to use the lanes that are in the parking lot. As far as, you know, tailgating, you know, that's not something that we allow, and if it ever does become a problem, you know, please let us know, because that shouldn't be happening.
Can you talk about security,
Yeah.
of the facility?
So, the site, you know, 24/7 security, it will have, it will be enclosed, right? There's that low fence that's built around the facility. There are, there are cameras around the site as well to ensure the safety both of the building, our employees and drivers. So, you know, from a safety standpoint, again, the site's gonna be very secure. I think about a year ago was when we really started ramping up, you know, site security, and further limiting site access after some feedback from the alderwoman about, I think folks were accessing the site to, you know, do donuts in the parking lot, and we wanted to shut that down.
Yeah, Matt, you had a question? In the
paper. Oh. Public facing what the case of drivers, and so I was curious, what's the charging instructor that put in for the cases? Is that something that would Amazon ever consider putting into the top network? Charger employees for a certain area with it. So I think that much.
Yeah, so this is one of the first things that Alderman Lee brought up to us, because we are working with ComEd to put in, you know, 100 plus chargers. Right now, we don't have those types of partnerships across our sites, primarily from a safety standpoint, right? So having the general public intermingling with truck traffic and van traffic coming in and out. With that said, you know, we're happy to have conversations with the community about some ways that we might be able to facilitate and support that. Particularly, you know, I know there have been some conversations in and around the Orange Line, some other places in the community where EV charging could really be useful.
Yeah. Mr. McNamara.
Yeah, question, how soon? Amazon's large trucks no longer do diesel. We're surrounded by expressways.
Yeah,
I live near the other Amazon block.
on Ashland.
Pretty good, national, yeah.
Question.
Yeah, so, great question, and I'll just use that to tout something that Amazon's working on. Amazon, has a program called the Climate Pledge, where by 2040, all of our operations are gonna be carbon neutral. So last mile delivery is kind of the easiest to address. So those are the delivery vans. You've seen those Rivian
Yes.
ones at those sites. We're now working on middle and first mile delivery, so big box trucks and semi trucks. We are testing, electric semi trucks. We're also testing hydrogen fuel and other types of technologies where we're hoping to transition off of, fossil fuels as soon as we can. I don't have an exact date for you, but it's absolutely something that we're investing in, and we're working right now.
And for the moments of the area.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that, I'm pretty proud of with our partnership with Rivian. It's really cool, obviously, Illinois-based company. All the vans that you see are built down as normal, which is pretty cool. We're taking more and more steps to do that. It's not just our delivery vehicles, but also our facilities. We're doing everything we can to reduce the carbon footprint, not only of operations, from electricity that powers the buildings to, all the carbon that goes into actually building the facility.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make this the last question. Oh, all right, look, Corey, you'll be last.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Conan, you'll be last. Go ahead. Yeah.
So my question was going back to the nighttime operation. I'm concerned about beep sounds from the vehicles, from the vans backing up.
Yeah.
Is that gonna be something that is gonna be minimized at night because you're doing most of the inside stuff? Or is that something that I'm gonna be willing to beep?
Yeah. So that was one of the first questions that came up when we first submitted plan design. It's one of the reasons why all of the truck and van operations are going to be located on the east side of the building. So, you'll have the buffer of the building between where the trucks and vans are going to be, unloading and staging at night. And then obviously, the berm was also built up and built out. Hopefully those trees will continue to get bigger and fill out and help muffle the noise, but that concern was exactly why we moved all the truck and van loading to the east side of the building.
That's actually the same question.
Yeah.
And you'll also see, and I know we talked a little bit about, action happening in the building overnight, but the vans that actually deliver to residential, and commercial properties, they don't load until like into the morning. So our shifts are kind of getting everything organized for those drivers to be ready to load. But loading for actual individual van traffic doesn't happen until much later. So you definitely won't be looking at those. Caribbean's going you.
I guess just for the record, I haven't spoken with my neighbors, but I would prefer not to have speed bumps on the residential streets, on Sonora, if we can avoid it.
I wouldn't do that without,
The traffic
yeah.
shouldn't be there anyway.
I only mentioned that if you guys wanted. I don't do that without, petitions being signed by neighbors.
Yeah. I agree with that, but
Yeah.
the thing is that just inside the parking lot, it seems like they should be, as I saw the long stretch of roads, there's no speed bumps. The cars inside see there's no traffic in there, they may, speed up.
Yeah,
You
and
guys-
so within our facilities, they're really tight. Speed and traffic rules as well, where, you can't speed, we enforce that, it's part of training. It's not something that we shy away from enforcing either.
So last thing I want to hear more about is that you may share a portion of your parking lot with the community at certain times or certain events.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Is that like a farmer's market type of thing, or you said?
Yeah.
No, we would not do that. So I wouldn't call you and say, oh, by the way, we're gonna have a farmer's market next Tuesday. But I have several
A
facilities.
music festival next to your,
Yeah.
Yes.
No, so we do a lot of community days at different spaces. Now, we're very conscious of the fact that safety's gotta be the priority, so we wanna make sure that if we are kind of cornering off a area of the parking, we're doing so at a time when we're not gonna see a lot of traffic flow. So what we tend to find is that we avoid those hours where, trucks are loading. So I'd say the majority of the things that we open up spaces for are kind of early afternoon after our overnight shift team members have departed for the day and we have a lot of extra space. If you're along the 35th and Ashland side, you'll know that the west half of our parking lot on the associate entrance is always basically vacant by noon. So we work with different community organizations that use the spaces for a host of different things. So sometimes it may be, we've done community basketball tournaments in our lots. We've done, turkey giveaways with community-based nonprofits that are doing food bank distribution. So we're very open to that.
Shred events.
Shred events we've done already at this facility, bike safety events, I've done at a couple of facilities, helmet distributions, we've done car check, or car seat check. Events with the police and fire, so we're pretty flexible, I think it really is about things the community wants to see in the space. Because when we do open up those spaces, then we're also inviting people into your community to park and to come and attend those things. So what we don't wanna do is have a nice community event, but then also create different headaches for neighbors that might otherwise not see that traffic. So if there are ideas that you have, or working with Alderman's office, if there's something that you think, man, it'd be really nice if we had this kind of big open square footage to do an event. I have a couple of sites that we've done, like movie night events and you know, late evening prior to the site needing to get busy for operations. And you know, it's a big open lot, it's well lit, there's close access to the train. So I think it's really about things you wanna see and making sure that they fit into both safety operations and things that you guys wanna see happen in the community. But yeah, we'd be very open to that.
Great. Well, I want to thank you guys for being here. Thank all of you for coming out tonight, giving us some of your time. I know we went a half hour, 40 minutes over our regularly scheduled time, but hopefully you got a lot out of this.
And I'll stick around if anyone wants to talk to me at your small business stuff with me.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes.